So one more topic I want to bring up, and it's going to come in handy later on when we talk about live booleans and stuff like that. But when we're talking about insert mesh brushes, let's go ahead and go into our tool palette here. I'm going to choose a ring 3D, drag it out on my canvas, go into edit mode. Let's go ahead and let's just hit make polymesh 3D, and we'll hit B, create insert mesh, new. Then we're going to grab a sphere, make polymesh 3D. So now we have a ring 3D, and then we have a sphere. So when we drag this out, you're going to see that ring isn't really going to follow that sphere. However, if you go over here to brush modifiers, there's a projection strength down here. If you crank that up to 100, then you drag this out, you're going to see as this thing drags out on the surface, it's going to stick to the underlying surface here. Now let's do another example that at first isn't going to work out so well. So I'm going to go out of edit mode, hit Control N to clear my canvas, go back into our tool palette, cylinder 3D, and before we initiate, let's go ahead, actually, you know what, let's just hit make polymesh 3D, and then under geometry, go to edge loop, and then do delete loops, and then based on that angle threshold, it'll go ahead and delete some loops for you. Let's hit W, let's go ahead and scale this down to like a coin. Let's snap to the side here, and since we already have our other brush selected, we can just hit B, create insert mesh, append, hit OK, and then if we go back to our polymesh sphere and we drag this cylinder out, you're going to see projection strength is still set to 100. However, when I drag this out, it's going to make a point. That's because there's not enough resolution on this thing to help it wrap around nicely. Now remember, if you turn off projection strength, it's just going to project, it's just going to drag out insert mesh on there, and it's not going to project at all. Projection strength up, it's trying to wrap around, but there's not enough resolution on that object. Let's go back to our polymesh cylinder here. One thing we can do is we can hover over with our Z modeler brush, BZM. Let's hover over an edge, we'll do insert multiple edge loops, and we'll just click and drag. And then to get the same amount of resolution on the other side, we'll just go to the other side and then just tap. That'll even it out. Let's go back to that brush we were working on. Let's hit B, create insert mesh, append. Let's go back to our polysphere, and now when we drag this out, since we added more resolution, now it'll have a much nicer fall off because there's more points in here for it to wrap around. So as we drag this out, it's going to match the underlying surface. Another thing you can do is if we go to subtool here with our sphere selected, let's go to append, and we'll append that polycylinder here. Let's select the cylinder here, let's hit W, and let's move this out in front of our Z-sphere here, and let's go ahead and scale this down. So now we have our polycylinder sitting in front of our Z-sphere here. So with our polycylinder selected, let's hit BM, and you're going to see BMM as MatchMaker brush. So if you position your camera, let's go ahead and just snap to the side here, and then we just pull on top of this object here with our Z intensity set to 100, it's going to match the curvature of that sphere to this object. Now this is camera based, so because we're snapped to the side, it does a pretty good job, and you don't have to do 100%, you can go like 24%, and then it'll just slightly start curving this object. However, if you take it up to 100 and then you go to the side here and then you'd use MatchMaker, what it's going to do is project straight from your camera, so it's going to MatchMaker all these, but then these ones, if you go a line straight from your camera straight back, it's not going to hit anything because there's no sphere over here. So it's going to try to wrap these, and it's going to warp it quite a bit because the angle is skewed. And then these ones it's going to completely ignore because there is no sphere from where your camera was. So with MatchMaker, you're always going to want to make sure you position your camera so that you're going straight back from your object, from the front object to the back object. Now, generally speaking, the projection strength with an insert mesh brush is going to work a lot better, but in a pinch, this can work sometimes as well.